Why don't people manage to reach a level of written literary Hebrew even though they've been studying for a number of years? Why can't Hebrew students understand what's written in an Israeli newspaper without using a dictionary? Why do Hebrew students have so many spelling mistakes?
Hi, my name is Ayala and I've been teaching Hebrew for more than 20 years.
For the past few years, Ayala Moses has helped students break through the barriers that once prevented them from gaining a command of written Hebrew and literary Hebrew. To make sure we're on the same page, we are referring to literary Hebrew, the Hebrew written in newspapers, as well as the Hebrew spoken on serious radio and TV programs by professionals and articulate newscasters and narrators. For 16 years, Ayala taught at an ulpan where students studied 5 days a week, 5 hours every day, namely 25 hours a week, and for a huge grand total of 500 hours over a period of 5 months. After deciding to take her Hebrew teaching knowledge online, she discovered that it was difficult to stretch the classes out over such a long period of time and needed to find a way to make the weekly hour-long session more effective so that students could make quantum progress every week. One day, a student by the name of John, who was a new immigrant, asked to learn Hebrew quickly before going into the army. Ayala realized that this time a different method would be needed. Rather than teaching him a large vocabulary as in the past, Ayala decided to try another approach, which, much to her surprise, worked even better. The approach, which is now known as the Moses method, was to focus on teaching him the foundations on which most words in Hebrew are built, namely the patterns and roots. Her assumption was that, in the future, it would help him master words he'd never encountered before. The alternative, which meant going over all the words, wasn't feasible because time was too short. As the famous saying goes, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. That's exactly what Ayala did. Ayala has accompanied John from the moment he started learning Hebrew, and she has been keeping a journal of his progress. Fortunately, John is someone who has trust in his teachers and also cooperated when it came to testing himself. At the end of that year, when they met in Israel to summarize the process, Ayala gave him a short quiz. John remembered all the patterns and roots he had learned. He knew what every root meant, and thanks to using the patterns, he also knew how to approach other words stemming from roots that they hadn't studied together. Today, John attends weekly Bible lessons and reads books in Hebrew. The broad foundation he received during his 4 years of study, a total of only 200 hours, enabled him to attain the desired results. It also led Ayala to realize that it's not necessary to learn an endless number of words in order to understand a text in literary Hebrew. John's success led Ayala to investigate and understand how Hebrew can be taught and be learned effectively over the internet. By focusing on the roots and understanding the verbal system, coupled with excellent learning materials, the desired results were attained within a short time. Thanks to these results, John developed a capacity to deal with new words, and most of all, he was able to fulfill all the aspects of his dream: to read literary texts, the weekly Bible portion, and original versions of David Grossman's books in Hebrew, to have conversations and understand all the songs. John's case proved once and for all that it's possible to master a text in literary Hebrew without memorizing an infinite number of words. To succeed in learning literary Hebrew, a student has to take a focused course tailored to Hebrew students. Such a course should combine group study and individual study. Because such a course doesn't exist yet, most Hebrew students rely on ineffective methods and end up wasting time, energy, and money to reach the desired target. And sadly, most of them never achieve it. Knowing that many more people spend hundreds of hours learning Hebrew without reaching the same results made Ayala want to duplicate the process she designed with John for other students as well. You're surely asking yourselves, how many words are needed in order to read a newspaper and understand literary texts? The answer may actually surprise you. Understanding Hebrew does not depend on your vocabulary. Written language increases the average vocabulary of a person speaking any language. Literary Hebrew also consists of a larger vocabulary than the spoken language. According to Yaakov Shueka, who researched the Hebrew language, there are 70 million words. And if we add new words and the slang that have become part of the language, the number is even greater. But don't worry, there's no need to know all of them in order to master literary Hebrew. So what do you need to know? Here's an interesting fact that will help you understand the right way to study Hebrew. Linguists say that roots are an integral part of the linguistic knowledge of people who speak Hebrew. In other words, people who speak Hebrew make use of their verb root knowledge in different ways. Roots are the basic component of all words in Hebrew. Roots bear the primary meaning of all words in Hebrew. The most common root in the Hebrew language has 3 consonants. That is different from other languages where the root can be of any length. Hebrew roots are divided into 2 types of patterns that are used to create words. One type is verbal pattern, from which we create infinitives, and the other is noun patterns, from which we create nouns. To better understand these patterns, I'll give you an example from our everyday lives. Imagine the shapes that cake pans come in. Which shape did you come up with? There are round pans and rectangular pans, flat pans and deep pans. Each one is shaped differently and serves a particular use. If, for example, you want to make a chocolate birthday cake, you prepare all the ingredients and pour them into the round pan. If you feel like giving some cake to your friends, you'll probably pour those same ingredients into 2 small rectangular pans. And if it's your young son's birthday, you're likely to pour the ingredients into a pan shaped like a teddy bear. There's no need to learn how to bake the chocolate cake every time you make it. The ingredients are the same ingredients. You just have to choose which pan to put them in. The same holds true for verbs and nouns in Hebrew. The verb and noun patterns are like cake pans, and the roots are the ingredients. As soon as we recognize the root and its meaning, we can put it into the different patterns and create new words, whether verbs or nouns. The patterns also signify something and add a general meaning to the root. For example, the names of occupations share the same ending. That's also the case with names of places. The patterns that are in your head enable you to take the root and build new words easily and quickly. It's very important to learn the written language because that's how Hebrew started. Hebrew did not undergo the normal stages that other languages did. The written language is the foundation of Hebrew, and if we ignore it and concentrate only on speaking Hebrew, we'll miss out on a significant part of the understanding of the language. You're surely asking yourself, where exactly are we saving time here? Well, rather than learn thousands of words, we learn patterns instead. I'm sure you'll be glad to know that there are only 7 verbal patterns in Hebrew. Only 7. And here's an interesting fact. Verbs are the most important foundation of Hebrew. So if you concentrate on the verb patterns and the roots that go with them, you hold the main key to learning Hebrew.
Boosting our knowledge of roots has many benefits. Here are some important ones you receive when you focus on understanding roots. The roots of words help us understand new words we're unfamiliar with correctly and accurately. By identifying families of words and extracting the roots from the words, we can reduce our spelling mistakes. Roots can help us match verbs to the nouns related to them and comprehend new words. In any event, it's necessary to remember that understanding the context of the sentence is important because we'll know how to use the root in its proper meaning. In conclusion, verbs are one of the foundations of the language. Focusing on roots, and after that on the verbs and their patterns, can give us a deep understanding of Hebrew.
Don't worry. Later on in the series, I'll explain exactly how to do that. Today, we managed to understand that by concentrating on what's most important, which are the roots and patterns of verbs and nouns, you'll be able to make enormous progress in your studies. In the next session, we'll provide an illustration based on that knowledge in which we'll take an example of one pattern and one root, and we'll see how using that pair of words can enable us to understand more than 10 new words. You'll also receive a worksheet from us so we can check some exercises related to that principle together. We'd like to use this series of video clips to provide information that is of most interest to you about learning literary Hebrew correctly. If you enjoyed the clip, please write and tell us what you liked about it and what else you want to know about literary Hebrew. We'll promise to respond to everything you write, and apart from that, we'll really enjoy reading what you have to say and preparing more clips. Even if it's something as short as 2 words, please write us. We hope to see you soon.